January 30th, 1968, 6 p.m., Saigon. The city is electric. A city of mopeds, aromatic street food, colonial French architecture, and American soldiers. Tonight is different. It is Tet Eve, the beginning of the Lunar New Year, the most sacred holiday in Vietnam. A fragile truce is supposed to be in effect. From the rooftop bar of the Rex Hotel, American officers and journalists clink glasses, the ice cubes rattling. They look out over the sprawling city, a sea of lights. Down below, celebratory firecrackers pop, a sound so common it blends into the background noise of the war. The mood is confident, optimistic even. Just 2 months earlier, in November 1967, the top U.S. commander in Vietnam, General William Westmoreland, had stood before the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. He was the face of the war, tall, stoic, confident. His words were unequivocal. "We have reached an important point where the end begins to come into view," he declared. He spoke of light at the end of the tunnel. The enemy, he assured the American people, was beaten. They were on the ropes, incapable of launching any significant offensive. In Saigon, this felt true. The capital was the beating heart of American and South Vietnamese power. It was an island of safety, insulated from the jungle war that raged in the countryside. And the very center of that island, the symbol of its absolute, untouchable power, was the brand new United States Embassy. Opened just 8 months prior, the $2.6 million compound on Thong Nhat Boulevard was more than a building. It was a statement. It was a fortress. Its design was a direct response to the war. The entire 6-story Chancery building was set back from the street, surrounded by a thick, 8-foot-high concrete wall. The wall itself was designed to withstand rocket attacks and satchel charges. The building's exterior was a lattice of concrete brise-soleil sunshades, which not only looked modern, but were heavy enough to detonate an incoming B-40 rocket before it could penetrate the windows. The windows themselves were made of 1.5-inch thick blast-proof plastic. Heavy steel doors, operated by Marines, sealed the entrances. To the American military command, this building was Westmoreland's folly, a waste of money because it was so laughably overprotected. Saigon was safe. Why build a bunker in the middle of a parade ground? Inside, the U.S. ambassador, Ellsworth Bunker, was preparing for bed, confident in the holiday truce. General Westmoreland was at his own villa, sleeping. The war for them was a distant hum of reports from the provinces. On duty at the embassy this night was a skeleton crew. The U.S. Army's 716th Military Police Battalion was responsible for the city. Inside the embassy compound itself, only a handful of Marines from the Marine Security Guard Detachment were on post. One of them was Sergeant Ronald W. Harper. He locked the heavy gates to the vehicle entrance. Another, Specialist 4th Class Charles Lee Daniel, manned the main lobby desk inside, monitoring a radio. They were expecting a quiet night. The biggest threat they anticipated was a lone sapper throwing a bomb over the wall. Simultaneously, a few blocks away, in a quiet alley, a small truck and a taxi pulled to a stop. 19 men, dressed in black civilian clothes, pile out. They are not Viet Cong guerrillas in black pajamas. They are Da Cong, Viet Cong Special Forces. These are elite sappers, members of the C-10 Sapper Battalion. They are impossibly young. Most are in their late teens or early 20s. Their leader, a man named Bay Tuen, hands out final instructions. They are armed with a mix of AK-47s, B-40 rocket launchers, the Vietnamese version of the RPG-2, and blocks of C-4 explosive. They know exactly what they are doing. They have maps. They have a floor plan of the embassy. Their mission is not a conventional military one. They know they cannot hold the embassy. Their mission is purely symbolic. It is to seize the unseizable, to die inside the American fortress, and to broadcast to the world, and to America itself, that General Westmoreland's light at the end of the tunnel was a lie. They are on a one-way mission. The sappers pile into the vehicles. The truck, a small Peugeot, is loaded with explosives. They begin to drive, slowly, blending in with the sparse holiday traffic. They approach the embassy. January 31st, 1968, 2:45 a.m. The night is shattered. The Peugeot truck, driven by the sappers, accelerates to full speed and rams a parked car, but their real target is the compound wall. Before the Marines on duty can even react, two sappers leap from the taxi, run to the wall, and detonate a massive C-4 satchel charge. The explosion is deafening. It blows a 3-foot-wide hole clean through the 8-foot-high concrete wall. The first two sappers through the hole are cut down by Sergeant Harper and another Marine who open up from their guard post. But they are too late. The rest of the 19-man team is already pouring through the gap, firing their AK-47s on automatic. The night air is ripped apart by gunfire. Inside the lobby, SP4 Daniel grabs his radio microphone and screams into it. "Signal 300! Signal 300! The embassy is under attack! They're coming in! They're coming in!" Signal 300 was the code for an enemy attack on the embassy itself, a code the MPs on duty never ever expected to hear. At the military police headquarters across town, the radio dispatcher's blood runs cold. He can't believe it. He asks Daniel to repeat. "They're coming in," Daniel shouts again, just as a B-40 rocket screams through the lobby and explodes, showering him with debris. The Untouchable fortress had just been breached. January 31st, 1968, 2:47 a.m., U.S. Embassy lobby. The B-40 rocket explodes against the lobby's interior wall. The blast is deafening, turning the air into a thick cloud of pulverized concrete and smoke. Specialist 4th Class Charles Daniel and Specialist 4th Class Owen are thrown from their chairs. Through the shattered main entrance, they see them, muzzle flashes. The silhouettes of the sappers are in the compound's front garden, firing wildly. AK-47 rounds, with their distinctive heavy crack, 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 rip through the lobby, chewing up the walls and the secure reception desk. Daniel and Owen, though stunned, are U.S. Army military police. They are trained for this. They scramble behind a thick teakwood planter, unsling their M16s, and return fire. They are joined by Sergeant Harper, who managed to fall back from the initial breach. The lobby, designed as a welcoming area for diplomats, has become a concrete kill box. The sappers' primary goal is not the garden,
It is the Chancery building itself. They believe, incorrectly, that Ambassador Bunker and key staff are sleeping on the upper floors. Their plan is to breach the lobby, fight their way up the stairs, and take the leadership hostage. 2 sappers, designated as the breaching team, run forward, dodging the fire from Daniel and Owen. They shoulder their B-40 rocket launchers and fire point-blank at the heavy teakwood doors that lead from the lobby into the embassy's secure core. The doors shudder, the wood splinters, but the steel core holds. The sappers are shocked. Their intelligence was wrong. They thought these were simple wooden doors. They reload and fire again. Boom! And again. Boom! They fire rocket after rocket, but the over-engineered fortress doors refuse to yield. The lobby is now thick with acrid smoke, making it impossible to see. The sappers, frustrated and realizing their main objective is failing, change tactics. They abandon the attempt to breach the Chancery. Now the mission changes. Hold the compound for as long as possible. Cause maximum chaos. Die here. Outside the walls, the Signal 300 has thrown the 7th 16th MP Battalion into a state of disbelief. At the MP Jeep Dispatcher's post, Sergeant John M. Hasty fields the call. "Say again, 50, Hasty radios back. "Did you say the embassy?" The idea is so absurd, he assumes it's a false report. But across the city, sirens wail to life. The 1st MP Reaction Force, a single jeep with 2 men, roars down Thong Knot Boulevard, tires screeching. They skid to a halt outside the main gate and are met with an unbelievable sight. The compound wall is breached, and they are immediately taking heavy automatic weapons fire from inside the embassy grounds. The 2 MPs dive out of the jeep, scrambling for cover behind a curb as rounds spark off the pavement around them. "This is 5-1, the MP, a 20-year-old private, screams into his radio. "They're in the compound. The VC are inside the compound. We are pinned down at the main gate." Simultaneously, MACV headquarters. General William Westmoreland is jolted from his sleep by the crump of explosions and the rattle of gunfire. His villa is only a few blocks from the embassy. He immediately assumes his compound is the target. He grabs his M16 and runs downstairs in his pajamas, ready to fight a last stand with his personal guards. He has no idea what is actually happening. His entire command structure is blind. The phone rings at his command post. It's the MP dispatcher. "Sir, we have a Signal 300. The embassy is under attack." Westmoreland is stunned. "The embassy? Are you sure?" The reports flooding in are pure chaos. Nobody knows how many VC are inside. Is it 19 men? Is it a full battalion of 500? Is this part of a larger coordinated ground assault on Saigon itself? The fog of war is absolute. Back at the embassy, the sappers have established a formidable defense. They are using the large, decorative concrete planters in the garden as perfect, pre-made foxholes. They have a clear line of sight to the breach in the wall and the main gate. A second MP Jeep arrives. The sappers, now in control of the garden, greet it with a B-40 rocket. The rocket streaks out and hits the Jeep, which explodes in a fireball, killing the 2 MPs inside instantly. The fortress is now a tomb. The few Marines and MPs inside the lobby are trapped, holding the line at the Chancery doors. The first wave of reinforcements outside the walls are pinned down, unable to even enter the compound they are supposed to be protecting. The sappers, armed with superior firepower and the element of surprise, are in control. In the lobby, SP4 Daniel, low on ammunition, peers through the smoke. He sees a sapper moving. He raises his M16, But at the same moment, another sapper he didn't see, hidden in the garden, fires a burst of AK-47 fire. The rounds hit Daniel in the chest. He collapses, his M16 clattering to the marble floor. He is the first American combat death inside the embassy. Minutes later, Specialist Owen is also hit and killed. The lobby falls silent. The sappers now believe the Chancery building itself is undefended.
January 31st, 1968, 3:30 a.m., U.S. Embassy compound. With the lobby's defenders, Daniel and Owen, now dead, the firefight shifts. The battle is no longer for the inside of the Chancery, but for the outside. The 17 surviving sappers have turned the embassy's immaculate circular planter-filled garden into a lethal fortress. From their concrete foxholes, the sappers command a perfect field of fire. They control the breach, the main gate, and the front lawn. The U.S. military police of the 716th Battalion are trapped on the dark street, a growing force of reinforcements with nowhere to go. Every attempt to storm the breach in the wall is met with a hail of AK-47 and B-40 rocket fire. "Get a machine gun up!" an MP lieutenant screams, his voice cracking. A private and his loader scramble to set up an M60 machine gun behind a parked car. Before they can fire a single belt, a B-40 rocket streaks from the garden and obliterates the car. The sappers are fighting with terrifying discipline. They are not spraying bullets wildly, they are firing in short, accurate bursts. They are also, critically, firing up. On the roof of the Chancery, Staff Sergeant Paul Healy and the remaining Marines are in a desperate situation. They are trapped on the top floor. They can hear the gunfire below them, both inside the lobby and in the garden. They have no idea if the sappers have breached the upper floors. Healy, armed with a shotgun, peers over the rooftop parapet. The garden is 30 feet below. In the pre-dawn darkness, he sees movement in the planters. Muzzle flashes. He raises his shotgun. Boom! He fires. Boom! He fires again. The sappers immediately return fire, their AK-47 rounds chipping the concrete right in front of Healy's face. He ducks back, heart pounding. The sappers control the ground, and now they are effectively suppressing the roof. The untouchable fortress is in a state of paralysis. 1. Marines are trapped on the roof. 2. Dead MPs are in the lobby. 3. Sappers control the garden. 4. Reinforcements are pinned down in the street. It is a complete tactical nightmare. 4 a.m. General Westmoreland's war room, MACV. General Westmoreland, now in full uniform, is pacing in fury. The fog of war is absolute. The reports he's receiving are contradictory, exaggerated, and terrifying. How many, he demands. Does anyone have a count? An intelligence officer, pale, looks at his report. Sir, initial reports from the MPs on the scene estimate a battalion, at least. They say there could be hundreds. Hundreds? Westmoreland scoffs, but the seed of doubt is planted. Then comes the report that changes everything. An MP on the radio, pinned down and hysterical, reports seeing VC inside the Chancery. He thought he saw them on the second-floor window. It's a false report, born of panic. But in the war room, it's taken as fact. They're inside the building, an aide says, his voice low. The psychological line has been crossed. It's no longer a breach, it's an occupation. Get me the 101st, Westmoreland orders. I want the paratroopers on that roof, now. 4:20 a.m.
Tan Son Nhut Air Base. The always-ready alert platoon from the 101st Airborne Division scrambles onto a UH-1 Huey helicopter. They are elite air cavalry, the best soldiers in country. Their mission, as they understand it, land on the roof of the U.S. Embassy, fight their way down through the building, and liberate it from the VC battalion that is holding the ambassador hostage. The Huey, call sign Chicken Man 7, lifts off. The pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Robert Mason, flies low over the city. As he approaches the embassy, his radio explodes with panicked chatter from the ground. 5-1, this is 7-0. We are taking fire from the embassy roof. Negative. That's friendlies. That's Healy. Cease fire. Who the hell is shooting at us from the Chancery building? Mason arrives over the compound and his stomach drops. He's not flying into a secure zone. He's flying into the middle of a 360-degree firefight. He tries to drop the Huey on the small helipad on the roof. Down, 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 he mutters, fighting the controls. Suddenly, AK-47 rounds thud into the helicopter's belly. The sappers in the garden are firing directly up at him. Taking fire, the crew chief yells. At the exact same time, the MPs in the street, seeing a dark, unidentified helicopter hovering over the embassy, also open fire, believing it might be a captured enemy aircraft. Ping, ping, rounds punch through the Huey's skin. We're taking fire from everywhere, Mason screams. I can't land. It's too hot. The paratroopers of the 101st, the elite of the U.S. Army, can do nothing but sit in the open doors of the helicopter, 100 feet in the air, watching the battle rage below them, completely helpless. Mason yanks the helicopter back up and away. Get us out of here. We can't land. Repeat, the LZ is not secure. He swings the Huey around and lands at a nearby U.S. compound. The paratroopers jump out, furious and confused. Their high-tech air assault, the very symbol of American power, has just been repelled. It is now 5 a.m. The sun is beginning to rise. The untouchable fortress has been under siege for more than 2 hours. The sappers, though heavily outnumbered, still control the garden, and the whole world is starting to wake up.
January 31st, 1968, 6:15 a.m. Thong Nhat Boulevard. The first grey light of dawn spills over Saigon. The truce is not only broken, it has been shattered. The popping of holiday crackers is now clearly, terrifyingly, the sound of a full-scale war that has erupted simultaneously across all of South Vietnam. But for the American press corps, woken by the explosions and machine gun fire, there is only one story. It isn't in Hue. It isn't in Khe Sanh, it's right here. Reporters from AP, NBC, and CBS, who had been sleeping in their apartments just blocks away, arrive on the scene before the military has secured it. What they see is not a minor disturbance, it is a war zone. They see American military police, the supposed guardians of the capital, pinned down in gutters, firing desperately into their own embassy. They see the bodies of the 2 MPs in the destroyed jeep, still smoldering. They see the gaping black hole in the compound wall. Peter Arnett of the Associated Press, a veteran reporter, gets on the wire. His report, filed in real time, is electric. He writes, "The Viet Cong have seized the American embassy. U.S. military police are pinned down, fighting to regain control. Snipers are in the windows. The battle is raging on the lawn." This report flies across the newswires, hitting ticker tapes in New York, London, and Washington, D.C.
In America, it is 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Families are sitting down to watch the evening news. A special report bulletin flashes across the screen. A grim-faced news anchor, like Walter Cronkite, appears, his expression one of profound disbelief. "Good evening," the anchor says, his voice heavy. "There are disturbing reports from Saigon. In what appears to be a massive, coordinated enemy attack, the Viet Cong have reportedly invaded the compound of the U.S. Embassy itself." The psychological shockwave is instantaneous. The embassy, the very symbol of American power, invaded? How could this be if the enemy was on the ropes? How if the end was in view? The light at the end of the tunnel that Westmoreland had promised just weeks before was suddenly revealed to be an oncoming train. 7:30 a.m. Back at the embassy. The battle is turning. Daylight is a disaster for the sappers. They are now exposed. Their cover in the concrete planters, so effective at night, is now a trap. Major Hillel Schwartz, the MP Battalion's operations officer, arrives and takes command. He is furious. He orders a full-on tear gas assault. "Masks on," he roars. "Flush them out." Thick, choking clouds of CS gas fill the garden. From the rooftop, the Marines who are still trapped also begin dropping tear gas grenades down into the garden. The sappers, equipped only with small rags over their faces, begin to cough and choke. Their disciplined fire becomes ragged. This is the opening the MPs need. Move! A new wave of MPs, led by Major Schwartz, storms the breach, firing as they go. They are finally inside the compound. It is no longer a battle, it is a mopping-up operation. The MPs hunt the sappers down one by one. 2 are found on the embassy steps, killed by the initial gunfire from the lobby. More are found behind the planters. The sapper leader, Bay Tuen, is the last to die. He is found slumped in a planter, his AK-47 empty, a rocket launcher by his side. 8 a.m. The rooftop. The firing in the garden subsides, replaced by shouts. "All clear! All clear! Compound is secure!" Finally, the helicopter Chicken Man 7, which had been forced to retreat hours earlier, returns. This time, it lands gently on the rooftop helipad. The elite paratroopers of the 101st, expecting to fight their way down through a captured building, instead jump out and are greeted by weary Marines. Staff Sergeant Healy and his men are exhausted and smoke-stained, but safe. The inner chancery doors had never been breached. The paratroopers quickly sweep the building, going floor by floor. They find the bodies of Daniel and Owen in the lobby. They find the upper floors where civilian staff are huddled in secure rooms, terrified but unharmed. By 9 a.m., the building is officially clear. The battle, which lasted over 6 hours, is over. Militarily, it was a catastrophic failure for the Viet Cong. 19 sappers were sent in, 19 sappers were dead. They never breached the secure building. They never took a single hostage. They held the garden for a few hours. But the sappers hadn't come to win. They had come to make a statement. And as General Westmoreland would soon discover, that statement had been heard by the entire world.
January 31st, 1968.
9:20 a.m., outside the U.S. Embassy. The gunfire has stopped, but the scene is one of pure surrealism. The manicured lawn of the American Embassy is a war-zone morgue. It's littered with the bodies of 19 Viet Cong sappers, spent AK-47 magazines, rocket launchers, and bloodstains. The Chancery building is scarred by rocket blasts. The breach in the wall gapes open like a wound. Into this scene steps General William Westmoreland. He arrives not in a tank, but in his personal staff car. He is immaculate. His uniform is perfectly pressed. His boots are shined. He steps out of the car and walks through the breach, his face a mask of calm, professional anger. He strides onto the lawn, deliberately stepping around the bodies and debris as if inspecting a barracks. The press corps who have been crouching behind cars for hours swarm him. Microphones are thrust in his face. "General, what happened? Are they in the building? Is it true, General, that you've lost control of the embassy?" Westmoreland stops. He looks directly at the cameras. And in this moment, he makes the single most disastrous public relations mistake of the entire war. He tells the military truth, not the visual truth. "Gentlemen," he says, his voice flat and annoyed, "do not be deceived. This was a desperate diversionary attempt. The enemy is on the ropes." He gestures at the dead sappers. "They failed. Their mission was to occupy the Chancery. They failed. They were all killed. They did not achieve their objective." A reporter shouts back, "But General, they got in. How can they be on the ropes if they can get into the embassy itself?" Westmoreland's face tightens. "I am telling you, this was a very small, very poorly executed attack that resulted in a tactical failure for the enemy. We have the situation completely in hand." He then gives his infamous stroll, walking casually around the compound to prove how safe it now was. But the cameras do not lie. The journalists are filming Westmoreland saying, "We are winning," and "the enemy failed," while the camera lens pans past him to show dead bodies lying on the embassy lawn. They show American paratroopers, the elite 101st Airborne, picking through the wreckage of their own national symbol. The American public watches this on their televisions, and they are confronted with an impossible choice. Who do you believe? The general's words or your own eyes? The image of a dead enemy soldier on the lawn of the U.S. Embassy was an image that was never supposed to exist. It was a logical impossibility. It was like finding a Soviet soldier in the White House Rose Garden. The sappers had failed to breach the Chancery doors. They had failed to take a hostage. They had all died. But they had succeeded in their true mission. They had created an image that shattered the illusion of American omnipotence. Back in Washington, D.C., President Lyndon B. Johnson watches the reports. He is apoplectic. He, like Westmoreland, had spent all of 1967 telling the American people that the war was being won. He famously turns to one of his aides. How did this happen? The military command in Saigon was just as stunned. They couldn't understand the reaction. "We won," one general is quoted as saying. "We killed 19, they killed 5 of ours. That's a 4-to-1 kill ratio. That is a victory." But the journalists on the ground knew the truth. The story was not the kill ratio. The story was the breach. The story was that the most secure building in Vietnam had been overrun. The Sappers' failure had exposed the official story as a complete lie. And as the sun rose higher over the blood-stained garden, every commander, every politician, and every journalist slowly began to realize the same terrifying truth. The battle for the embassy was over, but the battle for America's will to fight had just been lost.
February 1968, 1 month later, New York City. The smoke has long cleared from the embassy garden in Saigon. The breach in the wall has been hastily patched. The bodies have been removed. The official U.S. Army report has been filed, labeling the attack a resounding tactical victory for U.S. forces. But in the living rooms of America, the battle is still raging. The images from that morning, the dead sappers, the MPs pinned down, the helicopter unable to land, have played on a loop, burning themselves into the national psyche. General Westmoreland's confident assurances are now viewed with open contempt. He has been exposed, not as a liar, but as a man who seems utterly disconnected from the reality his own troops are facing. The attack on the Untouchable fortress has created a credibility gap so vast that no government press release can bridge it. The single most important casualty of the embassy attack was not a soldier. It was the truth, as the American public knew it. And no one felt this betrayal more keenly than Walter Cronkite. Cronkite, the anchor of the CBS Evening News, was the voice of mainstream America. He was a patriot. He had, for the most part, supported the war effort and trusted the official story from Westmoreland and President Johnson. The Tet Offensive, and specifically the embassy attack, shook him to his core. If the enemy was so beaten, how did they do this? In February, Cronkite decides to do something he rarely does. He leaves his anchor desk and flies to Vietnam himself. He needs to see the truth with his own eyes. He walks through the streets of Hue, still smoldering. He talks to shell-shocked Marines, and he stands in the garden of the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, looking at the patched-up wall and the bullet-scarred chancery. He returns to America, and on February 27, 1968, he does not read the news. He delivers a personal editorial, a report from Vietnam. We have been too often disappointed by the optimism of the American leaders, both in Vietnam and in Washington, to have faith any longer in the silver linings they find in the darkest clouds, Cronkite says, his voice somber and grave. He describes the shattered cities, the refugee camps, the weary soldiers. Then he delivers the line that will become the epitaph for the war effort. It seems now more certain than ever that the bloody experience of Vietnam is to end in a stalemate. The White House, the Oval Office. President Lyndon Johnson is watching the broadcast. He, more than anyone, understands the power of this moment. This isn't a radical student protesting. This is Walter Cronkite. This is the voice of Middle America. When the broadcast ends, Johnson turns off the television. According to his aide, Bill Moyers, the president slumps in his chair and says, "If I've lost Cronkite, I've lost Middle America." This is the core emotion. This is the true impact of the embassy attack. The 19 sappers who died on the embassy lawn never knew it, but their suicidal mission had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They failed to breach the chancery,
But they had, with their AK-47s and B-40 rockets, breached the psychological wall of America itself. They had forced the most trusted man in America to turn against the war. And in doing so, they had broken the will of the President of the United States. The untouchable fortress was, in the end, just an illusion. It was a $2.6 million symbol of a belief that American power and technology could create a perfectly safe green zone in the middle of a chaotic war. The Sappers proved that this was a lie. Their attack didn't just collapse a concrete wall. It collapsed the entire illusion of safety. It proved that in this war, there was no front line and no rear. The war was everywhere. No base was secure, no general was safe. Nowhere was safe. Militarily, the battle was a footnote, but as a story, as an image, it was the turning point of the entire war. The commanders, generals, and politicians were stunned, not because they had been beaten, but because their story, the story they had been telling themselves and the world, had been ripped apart in a single night. 1 month after Cronkhite's report, on March 31, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson Johnson would go on national television again. Beaten by the political fallout from Tet, he announced to a shocked nation, "I shall not seek and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president." The fortress had fallen.